Drew, overall, just energy is huge with this team. A lot of times that can define a positive and a negative result. How the last 2 days do you feel that you've brought the energy back within this team?
Yeah, I don't think it's ever been something that we've had to negotiate from a team standpoint. Guys are human. There's some days where, you know, they may not want to go, but I think we find a way. We find a way to give our best. But I think this group over the last couple of days of practice has been dialed in, and we're ready to go. Listen, and this once you get into conference play, and really throughout the whole season, like you don't have any time to feel sorry for yourself. It's a tough thing, but it's also a beautiful thing in a sense, right? You got another opportunity, you got another chance to right whatever you thought was wrong, and then just try to make a different type of impact.
Either watching the film or just experiencing it in real time, what maybe commonalities between these last 2 games did you see, and how did you try to address those?
Uh, Turnovers, right? I thought timely turnovers. We had 4 turnovers at halftime, but we had 8 in the second half. And then we didn't own the rebounds, but I think one of the biggest keys was transition defense, allowing them to get downhill, get in front of the rim. They got putbacks that way because it's hard to rebound out of transition, and they got to the free throw line as well. So there were, if I was to look at both the past games, both those losses, that's something similar in both scenarios where we just didn't defend the right way with the right mentality and transition.
Defensively, because obviously that's something you've been very quite familiar with in your time here, just what did you see defensively, whether it's talking, whether it's moving? I saw you moving a little bit to show them on the slide. Just what are you looking for defensively to make sure these guys key in again?
Yeah, I mean, our communication always has to be at a high level. And then, I'm under the belief, like, we're going to defend, we're going to try to do our best job, but there's usually 1,000 mistakes, right, within a possession, right, just a little bit off. And how do we correct those mistakes? Now, the possessions where we don't have anything are awesome, but, there's going to happen. The things are going to happen. Offense will put you in a tough situation where it forces a very hard closeout, and you have to be able to win that closeout. And if you don't, you got to be able to bring your help side and correct it. So I think our communication is key, and then I'm going to look for what our multiple efforts look like, right? I think that's the next key, right? What does that second and third effort look like?
We're heading into the end of January here. We're turning the calendar after this game pretty much. Just rotation-wise, how important is it to set one, or how much at this point in time can it still be interchangeable, moving pieces, hot hand, cold hands, etc.?
I think the rotation is pretty much coming to form. With the starting group, it's been a regular cast of starters. The guys who are coming off the bench usually understand when they're coming in the game and who they're coming in for. So I think we're reaching a point where we understand our roles, understand the rotation. You'll always have to play to a hot hand or who's got it going at times, right? That's just playing the game of basketball. You don't want to ignore that. But I believe that more importantly, our guys are comfortable with with the opportunities that they're getting. I think they're not anxious. They're not, looking over their shoulder, and they're playing the style of basketball that I want them to play.
In terms of starters, obviously starting doesn't necessarily mean everything, but Jashawn's been the only guy that started every single game this season. Just what have you seen with him bringing his lunchbox on a nightly basis that gives you that trust to put him out every night?
Well, there was a moment where I had to sit him down and talk to him as well too. But I think he found his way. Listen, I didn't intend for it to be a rotational door. It just happened that way. It's happened where, I thought he's played at a level, and I think, sometimes the decision has to be made whether it's the best fit for him, And once again, like, you can start and be out in 3-4 minutes and maybe not return to the court based on what I decide and what I want to do, right? But I just feel like it's more important for me to figure out what's the best quality, what's the best rotation to help us win basketball games.
When it comes to end of game scenarios, going back to rotation question, do you go with feel? Do you go with what you see in game? What kind of makes those decisions for you, and how has that sharpened over time?
You go with a little bit of everything, right? There's feel that comes into it, right? There's grouping, right? The lineups that are necessary, and then you also have to consider. A lot of times when people think about it, it's one-ended, right? There's two ends that go with basketball scenarios. So offensively and defensively, who can give us the best quality offense as well as be strong defensively? So that all comes into play, and then we also have our numbers. What lineups are really strong and work together well. So I have to pay attention and juggle all those things. There's some things I know beforehand, and there's some things that happen internally and over the course of the game.
I hate to ask this, but I feel like I'm letting my readership down if I don't ask this. With what you can share, what's the latest on Jake?
Well, what I can share, the latest on Jake is he has another doctor's appointment coming up. So we'll discuss his timeline. It's been unfortunate that he's battled through an injury. He's still continuing to rehab. He's doing everything in his will that's going to help him play. So, but honestly, it's just a tough injury he's battling, and his health is the most important thing. To put him out on the floor at 70% isn't fair to him, and that's not what we want to do. We always have to be cautious of his career.
As a non-disturbing follow-up, just how much important do you press upon him that he still has a role on this team, that he can still support the guys and be a shoulder that they can lean on?
I didn't even have to do that. I mean, Jake is so dialed in to our team that he provides that leadership. He shows up. He's here on time. He hasn't touched the ball, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Sometimes he doesn't even have rehab that morning or workout that morning. It may take place later in the afternoon, but he's here every day on time, all the time, and that goes a long way, man. And then he's got an unbiased opinion now, right? He's not playing. He's not competing against anyone. He's not getting any shots, so he's able to, tell guys the truth exactly how it needs to be, and I think that's important.
Last one I have for you. Obviously, you came back Sunday after the Fordham game, and here you are leaving on Tuesday. You've had stretches like this before, but when you have stretches like this, is it more physical? Is it more mental? And how do you handle the demands of it?
It's both. It's both. But I think you got to win the mental battle first, right? If you keep telling yourself you're tired and fatigued, it'll start to drain you. I think mentally is the challenge, but physically you have to do the proper things. You got to get to the rehab room. You got to recover. You got to ice. You got to go see our trainer. So both parts play a role.